Now imagine this. It's 3:47 a.m. The stadium lights are long gone. The crowd that once screamed his name is silent. The trophies sit in glass cases. And a 54-year-old man wakes up, not as a legend, but as someone still asking a terrifying question. Was it really victory, or just survival? This is the story of Kurt Warner, the man America called a miracle. Two-time NFL MVP. Super Bowl champion. Hall of Famer. The face of the greatest show on turf. With the St. Louis Rams. The quarterback who took the broken Arizona Cardinals to a Super Bowl almost no one believed they deserved to play in. But here's what the highlight reels never told you. Before the confetti. Before the MVP chants. Before Super Bowl 34 changed his life. There was silence. Rejection. Humiliation. Fear. Cut by the Green Bay Packers without explanation. Stocking shelves at a grocery store while his dream quietly died. Playing in the shadows of the Arena League where almost no one was watching. And just when he reached the top, the fall was even more brutal. Dropped. Replaced. Publicly doubted. Torn apart by media. Injured. Forgotten. So the real question isn't how he became a legend. The real question is this. How many times can a man be erased, and still refuse to disappear? Stay with me until the end of this journey, because the final chapter of this story isn't about a trophy. It's about something far heavier. And far more painful. Kurt Warner's life never began under bright lights. He grew up in Iowa in a quiet house shaped by divorce and emotional distance. There were no dramatic explosions, no visible scars. Just a silent absence. The kind that teaches a child early that nothing is guaranteed. Security wasn't something he felt. It was something he chased. Football became that chase. At the University of Northern Iowa, he wasn't treated like a future superstar. No national spotlight. No. Next big thing. Label. Just a young quarterback trying to prove he deserved to stay. Then came the draft. No call. No celebration. Just silence. The Packers gave him a brief opportunity. A small door cracked open. But it closed just as quickly. He was cut. No dramatic meeting. No roadmap back. Just another reminder, you are replaceable. And that moment hit deeper than football. Because it confirmed a fear planted in childhood, that when you are no longer useful, you are left behind. So he went home. Not to applause. To fluorescent grocery store lights. Stocking shelves. Counting paychecks. Avoiding old friends who might ask, "What happened?" Imagine carrying a Super Bowl dream in your heart, while arranging cereal boxes at midnight. Every shift wasn't physical exhaustion. It was identity erosion. Was the dream foolish? Was he foolish? But quitting would mean confirming every doubt that ever surrounded him. So instead of disappearing, he chose humiliation. The Arena League wasn't glamorous. Smaller fields. Smaller crowds. Smaller paychecks. But it gave him one thing, a football in his hands. There were no cameras waiting. No headlines predicting greatness. Just narrow sidelines and loud breathing. Most people would call that a step down. For Kurt, it was oxygen. Because continuing, even in obscurity, was better than vanishing. And then life asked him a heavier question than football ever could. He met Brenda. She came with a painful past. With scars. With 2 children. Including Zachary, a boy with severe brain damage who would need lifelong care. Kurt had no contract. No security. No guarantee he'd ever return to the NFL. Walking away would have been understandable. Staying would mean permanent responsibility. He chose to stay. Not because it was easy. Not because it was romantic. But because he refused to become the kind of person who leaves when things get hard. That decision changed him more than any touchdown ever could. Then came the miracle. An injury opened the door with the Rams. And suddenly, the unknown grocery store worker was leading the most explosive offense in football. MVP. Super Bowl champion. America's fairy tale. But here's the part no one talks about. When success comes too fast, it feels fragile. Every throw carried fear. Every win felt temporary. Every season felt like it could vanish. Because he had been cut before. And people who've been erased once never fully relax. The miracle became pressure. Injuries followed. Criticism grew. The media shifted tone. The same spotlight that lifted him now searched for flaws. Eventually, the Rams cut him. No tribute. No ceremony. Just business. The miracle had expired. In New York with the Giants, things collapsed publicly. Per performances. Relentless headlines. Doubt everywhere. He wasn't just failing. He was failing loudly. For the first time, belief was gone, not just from the media, but from teammates. from fans, from the organization. And when belief disappears, what's left? Arizona. The Cardinals were struggling. Low expectations. Little hope. And that's where something unexpected happened. Without pressure to be a legend, he became free. He stopped playing to prove. He started playing to live honestly. And slowly, something remarkable grew. Leadership. Calm. Acceptance. The Cardinals reached Super Bowl 43. One more shot at immortality. But this time, he wasn't chasing a fairy tale. He was chasing closure. The game was heartbreaking. A painful loss. One of the most dramatic finishes in Super Bowl history. But when it ended, he didn't collapse. He didn't rage. He stood still. Because for the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid of disappearing. He had carried responsibility. He had endured humiliation. He had been cut, doubted, replaced, celebrated, and erased again. And he was still standing. Later, he entered the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Official recognition. Permanent legacy. But here's the truth Kurt Warner understood long before the gold jacket. Victory isn't the trophy. It's refusing to vanish when no one believes anymore. So when that 54-year-old man wakes up in silence, he doesn't see MVP awards. He sees grocery store aisles, arena league sidelines, hospital visits with Zachary, being cut without thanks, losing when the whole world watched. And he understands something deeper than football. Some men win championships. Others win survival. Kurt Warner did both. But survival, that was the harder one. And maybe that's the real miracle. But here's what most people never think about after the Hall of Fame speech, after the gold jacket, after the applause fades. What happens when the story is officially complete? When Kurt Warner stood on that stage in Canton and entered the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the world saw closure. A perfect ending. A full circle. Undrafted. Grocery store clerk. Arena League. MVP. Super Bowl champion. Hall of Famer. Hollywood-level script. But real life doesn't freeze on that frame. After the cameras shut off, he went home. No locker room. No teammates waiting. No playbook for tomorrow. Just routine. Responsibility. And the quiet reality that football no longer defined him. And that's where a different battle began. Because retirement isn't rest for someone who has lived in survival mode his entire life. It's confrontation. For decades, his value was measurable. Yards. Touchdowns. Wins. Losses. Championships. Now, there were no stats.no scoreboard to confirm he was doing enough. He had to wake up and exist without performance. For a man who had been cut multiple times, who had lived with the fear of being replaceable, that silence was dangerous. Because when the world stops calling your name, old fears get louder. Was he still needed? Was he still relevant? Or had his usefulness expired? He moved into broadcasting, analyzing games instead of playing them. Talking about quarterbacks who were younger, stronger, faster. Sometimes watching from the booth felt like watching a version of himself that no longer existed. He wasn't jealous. But he was aware. Aware that time doesn't negotiate. Aware that the league keeps moving without sentiment. And yet, something inside him had shifted. In earlier years, being replaced felt like death. Now, it felt natural. Because for the first time, he wasn't fighting to protect an identity. He was building one. Father. Husband. Mentor. Advocate. He and Brenda leaned deeper into their faith. Into community work. Into speaking about resilience, responsibility, and purpose beyond trophies. He talked openly about Zachary. About caregiving. About the parts of life that don't make highlight reels. And here's the powerful part. When he speaks now, he doesn't sound like a man bragging about success. He sounds like a man who survived insecurity. He tells young athletes something most fans don't want to hear. Your career will end. Your body will age. The crowd will move on. If your identity is only football, you will feel empty. That lesson didn't come from winning. It came from losing. From being cut. From stocking shelves. From public failure in New York. From losing Super Bowl 43. From understanding that applause is temporary. But character isn't. At 54, his mornings are slower. His body reminds him of collisions from years ago. Shoulders stiff. Back tight. Quiet aches that don't make headlines. He doesn't complain. Because pain no longer feels like injustice. It feels like history. He attends Zachary's appointments. Adjusts schedules. Shows up consistently. The same way he showed up on 3rd and Long. There are no commentators analyzing those moments. No replays. No crowd. But that's where his real discipline lives now. And sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, He thinks about the question that started all of this. Was it victory, or just survival? The answer isn't dramatic. It's layered. Yes, he won a Super Bowl. Yes, he became a Hall of Famer. Yes, he completed one of the greatest comeback stories in sports history. But the deeper win? He never became bitter. He never walked away from responsibility. He never let fear of being erased turn him into someone who erases others. He didn't disappear when life got hard. That's why his story lasts. Because in a culture obsessed with rings and records, Kurt Warner represents something quieter. Not perfection. Persistence. Not fairy tales. Endurance. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If you strip away the MVP titles, if you remove Super Bowl XXXIV, if you take away the gold jacket, what remains? A man who kept showing up. Even when nobody clapped. Even when nobody believed. Even when nobody was waiting. And maybe that's why his story feels heavier than most sports legends. Because it's not about winning once. It's about refusing to vanish, again and again, in a world that replaces people every season. So the next time you hear his name, don't just remember the confetti. Remember the grocery store aisle. Remember the Arena League. Remember New York. Remember Arizona. Remember the man who stayed. Because long after the trophies collect dust, that's the part that doesn't expire. And if you're still here listening, that means something in this story feels familiar. Maybe you've been cut. Maybe you've been doubted. Maybe you've felt replaceable. Then understand this. Miracles are rare. But character is a decision. And that decision is available every single day.